Welcome everybody back to the TheDomCast episode. Oh, whoops. Wow, it has been a while since I did not look at the number of the last episode. I think we're on 34, 33, 34, something like that. I don't know. Another day, another TheDomCast. Another week of the preseason has passed. By my calculations, how long do we have? We have 11 days until the season actually starts. Thank God, because I'm actually just now getting to that point right now where I'm a little bit tired of preseason, just a little bit. It's been a good preseason, but it's getting harder and harder to watch all this effort and just all this hard play being expended on games that aren't, they don't matter. They're not counting for anything. If you didn't watch the game last night, I'm recording this on a Friday, by the way, so the game that happened last night, it was Thursday. Steph Curry is already, oh man, he's already turning on Super Steph. This is what we wanted. This is what we were looking for with the absence of Klay Thompson. With the removal of Kevin Durant with a totally new roster, we were like, Super Steph is going to have to make an appearance for them to make a playoff appearance. And against the Timberwolves, he scored 40 points in 3 quarters, so this is exactly like 2016. And here's the thing that cracked me up, right? I saw it on Twitter and I was like, and so it begins. And I see a reply that's like, oh, Dom, it's preseason. Come on, man. What? Has Steph Curry not done this before to damn near all of the league? Have we not seen this before? Is this not more of the same? See, I get it when you're talking about things that happen in the preseason that are kind of our first taste of it. Like the Ben Simmons three-pointer we're going to get to, that was just kind of our first taste of Ben Simmons ever shooting in a game. There's no indication yet that he's actually going to be able to do that during the season. We don't know yet, right? Zion Williamson looks good so far, and while he showed us some things on the court that he can do, of course we're going to have to wait to see what adjustments are made, all that kind of stuff. So you've probably seen my Zion Williamson video by now, and you notice I never said that he was a lock for a superstar and that everything is just a foregone conclusion. I was just showing some of the tools that he has at his disposal, so I wouldn't make any real judgments based off of that. But the Curry thing, that's not a judgment being made. This is something we've seen before. We know he can do this. So I felt like that was kind of a brain dead comment to bring up that it's preseason with Steph. Like, we literally seen the Warriors win games in 3 quarters mostly because of him. This is a thing we've seen already. So anyways, I'm sure we will talk more about that as we go, because I actually want to start the podcast off with Zion. I'm going to go through a lot of what we've seen in preseason so far, but I just want to start here because I posted that video yesterday and because, well, he is the hot topic. He is what we've been looking forward to, the rookie we've most been looking forward to since the entrance of LeBron James. And at the time of this recording, there's only 2 games. I have to do it on Friday morning. I'm not going to have time to watch games tonight and do a podcast and do other things I have to do. So he's going to play against the Utah Jazz tonight. That is not a part of this podcast. So far all we have is the Bulls and Hawks game. And man, these Zion takes are already getting stupid. I just don't get it, right? I don't get what this obsession is with not wanting to see players do well or not wanting to give them props where they're good at. Or here's what I mean. So Zion, he had a decent first showing against the Hawks, then he went against the Bulls and he was scoring very easily. Now, yes, it's the Bulls. It's not great defense. Of course, there were probably some guys on the court that aren't really going to be on the court a lot during the regular season. So again, that's why you don't make the judgment like, oh, it's just a foregone conclusion. Zion is everything and more. But the part I don't get is he has a dominant performance. He shoots 12 of 13. He scores 29 points. And it was with very minimal effort. If you actually watch the game, it was just doing stuff that he's just good at. He built up 29 in like the Kawhi way, where it doesn't really look like he's doing a whole lot. Then you look after the game and it's an efficient, crazy stat line. And what you see after the game from people who I guess don't like Zion already or are just looking for something to complain about. Oh, what about his jump shot? What the fuck? Biggest fucking facepalm. We know he can't shoot yet. We've seen his form. We've already seen his free throws. At the NBA level, we already know it's not that great yet. His form is not that great for the NBA level. His lift off the ground, none of it is really that good yet. We know coming into his rookie year, that's going to be the thing. So what's the point of going to every Zion thread where you see a dunk or you see him doing the things that he's good at, taking advantage of what the defense gives him? What's the point of going on all those threads and like, oh, but did he shoot? Y'all people just be bored as hell. It's like nobody can just enjoy anything. And then, oh yeah, what really happens, you get to the Skip and the Shannon show, and they're talking about, oh, it wasn't impressive because he didn't shoot yet. He did. What? What kind of take is that on his second preseason game? Nothing he did was impressive because he hasn't shot. Two things here. First of all, how about we take into account that the things that everyone always says is going to get worse as he jumps from level to level, so far have not gotten worse. So when he was in high school, people said, oh, well, he's going to go to college and there's going to be stronger and bigger defenders and he's just not going to eat like that. And then he ate like that. Then while he was in college, they were saying, oh, but everyone in the NBA is going to be so much bigger and stronger and he's going to be an undersized 4. And in his first 2 games, he's doing the same things he's been doing. His strength is playing at the rim. Even if he's not taller than everybody, the combination of his size and his speed and his strength, when you take all of those into account relative to each other, they are kind of unmatched. There's not a lot of NBA players that can just straight bang with him down low. Are there going to be stronger guys? Sure. Is it going to get tougher than it has been in these preseason games? Of course. But when you talk about him having a head of steam going to the rim, when you talk about him catching the ball and being able to get 2 feet in the paint and taking a power dribble, there's not a lot of players that are just gonna want to get in front of that or have the physical attributes necessary to stop that. That's still going to be a thing. And then the second thing is, Zion is not the first amazing prospect to come into the NBA and have a lot or develop a lot and have the shot lagging far behind. He's not the first. Giannis is coming into his 7th year. Last year in the playoffs was the first time we saw him shooting the ball like, okay, this is starting to get respectable. This is starting to become worrisome. Ben Simmons in his 3rd year in the NBA, he's just adding the 3-point shot to his arsenal, and when you get to playoff basketball, of course, the lack of a shot definitely matters there. That's where it's going to matter. When you're trying to go deep and you're trying to win a championship, that hurts the team. That hurt the Sixers last year. But he's still been a great player nonetheless, Ben Simmons has. And so we know that's the next evolution for them, and I see it as the same for Zion. I don't get this thing where you have this damn Mack truck into the league, and you're like, oh, where are his step back 3-pointers? Like, especially in these 2 games where it's nothing but open lanes. I think so far I've only seen him take a 1 3-pointer. Everything else has been him curling into the lane. It's been him catching the ball in transition, rebounding. It's been things like that. But it's been because also these defenses have so many soft spots, the one that he's been playing against, the Hawks and the Bulls, that it really hasn't made sense to start taking any shots. So that whole thing with Skip and Shannon about it's not impressive. Well, you saw his first basket against the Atlanta Hawks and how the defense just wasn't set up at all and he ran right to the middle. When you're constantly getting lanes like that, why do you even need to shoot? So I'm talking about those 2 games specifically. He didn't really even need it yet. But yes, that is going to be his evolution as a player. That's when you're looking at your my player and you're grinding the badges, the finishing badges and playmaking. Yes, Zion is going to need his shooting badges. That is what is going to take him from this amazing prospect and this exciting prospect to the NBA superstar level. But on that topic of him just being an athletic dunker, that's the other thing I was trying to show in my video, is that especially if you have not watched the games, Zion is not just dunks. The man has ball handles. He throws really good passes. He's had a couple passes where it's like, for somebody that, you know, at his size, they've been pinpoint. And his athleticism just enhances all of that. So there's been a couple of passes that he's been able to make, and I'm talking about pinpoint passes out of midair. He's been able to rise up into midair, have defenders drawn to him in the paint, and then throw it to a corner. You know, other big men, sometimes that pass is sailing out of bounds or it's just not going to be pinpoint. His has been pinpoint, and his athleticism enhances his ball handling. There's been a couple where he gets a head of steam, he does an in and out move. He had one where he went behind the back. He's more than just a dunker. A lot of his stuff has been layups and contact finishes. But yes, as any rookie would, he has a while to go. He has a long time to go. On the defensive end, he's not that great yet. And I'm talking about his off-ball defense. Of course, we know the chase downs are probably coming. We know there's going to be a couple blocks. But I've been watching him in the NBA game so far, and his rotations, he falls asleep sometimes. His defensive awareness, again, it's just the preseason, but so far that is something I've seen as a weakness. He's definitely let the defense down sometimes, and the whole team defense will break down because of it. So there's things like that. Sometimes he seems like he's a little bit out of control because he's trying so hard to get to the rim, mainly in transition. So there'll be times where he'll like dribble into a crowd, or he tries that in and out thing and it doesn't go well. Those are all things that are going to come with time. Pacing is probably just an experience thing. Now, what's going to be interesting this season specifically is the team around him, because one thing you can identify in this preseason game that's not an overreaction is that he is going to draw defenses inside, because it's more than a one-man job. Once he has a foot or two in the paint, it's more than a one-man job to stop him. So that's going to be interesting because he's going to draw these defenses in, and it's going to be up to his teammates to hit shots. Lonzo Ball's shot has looked nice so far. He's revamped his form. He looks a little bit more confident in his stroke. So it's going to be up to him, Ingram, pretty much guys not named JJ Redick, when that pass comes because Zion has drawn all the defense down low, it's going to be up to them to knock down those shots. Them being able to spread the floor is going to be vital to Zion's success, because otherwise, yeah, when he barrels into the paint, people will try to crowd it. If they figure out that Ingram's not hitting shots or Ball's new form isn't working out, yeah, they're gonna try to crowd anytime they see him driving. So yeah, that's I think that's good for Zion takes for now. Zion is NBA Twitter's new Ben Simmons, as in after every game that he dominates or every highlight he does something nice, somebody's gonna be under it. Oh, jump shot. Like, I don't get why nobody can just enjoy something. You always see that stupid shit, right? Like on a Bleacher Report page, you see a highlight, like it's just a highlight. Like, enjoy the dunk, take the highlight. What's so difficult? I don't know, man. People be bored out their mind. If someone was saying that Zion was going to lead the Pelicans to a championship this year or something like that, like when you start overrating what he'll be able to do, then that's appropriate. Then you're like, oh, well, how is he going to do that without shooting? Then it's appropriate and it makes sense to start showing the weaknesses in his game. But just hunting it out, like, people just be weird as hell, bro. People be weirdos on the internet. I don't know. Anyways, back to Super Steph. So game was against the Timberwolves. He played 25 minutes, hit 40 points. This is only the second game of the preseason for him, because the only other one was against the Lakers. And look, I'm just glad that Curry has something to play for this season, because one thing I didn't like about the whole Kevin Durant era is that it really just seemed like Curry had one job, and it was just to go out and just be great in a situation that was very easy to be great in. And it just wasn't fun. I don't like seeing all-star players play as a part of an all-star team, because when there's very little adversity, when there's very little chance for them to lose, it's really hard to tell where these players are actually at. Like, there's a lot of players that could look good in the type of situation that the Warriors had over the last few years. And then of course it fell apart with injuries last year. I think if it weren't for injuries, we would be sitting here talking about a Golden State three-peat. I really think so. But we're not. The Warriors roster is totally different, and Super Steph, that's what we're looking at this year. We're wondering how this works for them as far as the playoffs. I already see takes of people saying they're not going to make the playoffs. I think Chris Webber was on there saying he doubts they're going to make it. And then the pullback to that is immediately to say, oh man, the Warriors are getting disrespected. And it's not that they're getting disrespected, it's the conference they play in. The Western Conference this year, off the top of my head, they have about 10 teams that you could look at and say, yeah, I could see them in the playoffs. And that's just the ones that's not counting any surprise teams. That's just teams that have the necessary tools to make an NBA playoffs. So in that situation, a team that has injuries, a team that has a lot of questions, it is natural to say, especially when they could still win, what, like 47 games maybe? If they came out with 47 games, there's been teams like that in the Western Conference that didn't make the playoffs with that high of a win total. So it's not disrespectful to say the Warriors aren't going to make it. I mean, it would be disrespectful to just write them off. If you're just writing them off at this point and just saying, yeah, they're not, you know, they have no chance this year, well, I have no clue why you would think a team with Curry and Russell and Green doesn't have a chance. But yes, it is going to be a challenge, and I'm ready to see Curry step up to that challenge. I'm glad to see he's already in that mindset. So yeah, the dude said it's just a preseason game. Again, like, we've seen Steph torch basically everyone in the league now. This is not a new thing. So I'm glad to see he is in the mindset of he's going to need to score, he's going to need to get hot, and a lot of his shots were like Steph shots last night too, so they weren't necessarily all running off of screens, because that was the biggest question. I was thinking about 2016 in the year that he had, and just how much of a role it played that he had great teammates and great screeners and Klay Thompson on the floor, obviously, and all these things that allowed him to move freely. So a lot of his shots last night were just like straight Steph shots. Like, he picked it up with a little time off the dribble and let it fly. He was open for a split second. It was those type of things, and you think that he's probably going to need those this year. He's probably going to need those because the team just is not as good as it's been. It's not as good, it doesn't have as much space. Probably not going to have as much chemistry starting off because of all the new faces, so not just D'Angelo Russell, but all the young guys now. Oh, speaking of young guys, Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole last night basically copied D'Angelo Russell's whole cyber face. I got them confused while I was watching on the floor. You have to look at the jersey number to tell them apart. They had the same hair, they had the arm sleeve. I think at one point D'Angelo Russell scored and they gave the points to Poole, or vice versa. I'm not sure how it happened, but anyways, yeah, Jordan Poole can score. That's good, because that's a guy just came to the team very young and already making an impact. That's going to be very important to the Warriors' success this year. With the volume of shots that Steph is going to be taking, with the offensive load that he is going to have to carry to get this team to a playoffs this year, I'm going to be watching how it is that he scores. He knows how to move without the ball. That's not the question. It's basically a question of, you know, chemistry coming together as quick as possible, screen setters, those type of things. And as mentioned with Jordan Poole, just any type of scoring that they can get helps. Whether it's Jordan Poole, whoever it is, because that is the one concern in this Western Conference where every game is going to be tough. You just kind of wonder how many points is Steph and D'Angelo Russell going to get you every night. So you might look at something like 50 or 60 points. And so they're going to have to get creative for the rest of that. And then you wonder about their defensive issues that are going to arise from having Steph and D'Angelo back there. There's a lot of questions, but the playoffs are extremely doable, and it all starts with Steph being super Steph. I think that is going to be necessary with this roster. So yeah, glad to see he's in that mindset. Kawhi Leonard made his extremely miniature Clippers debut last night. He played 10 minutes, scored 7 points, and he just looked like Kawhi. He was hitting his mid-range shots, getting to whatever spot he wanted. Yep, picking right up where he left off, but just those 10 minutes just watching them. Oh, by the way, actually, their starting lineup, that was the main thing that caught my attention. So I believe I talked about that in my Clippers preview. We were wondering what they were actually going to roll out. What they went with last night was Lou Williams, Landry Shamet, Kawhi, JaMychal Green, and Montrezl Harrell. That indicates that, well, again, preseason, they could just be playing with different lineups. I think the Lakers even did that in their Nets game. I think it was a little bit different than it was in the Warriors game, but I still think it's going to end up being Lou Williams at the point, PG at the 2, Kawhi at 3, JaMychal at 4, and Montrez at 5. So I just thought that was interesting because there was a lot of different lineups that people were throwing out on Twitter. The main one that 2K used, the one that the game shipped with, I believe was Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, PG, Kawhi at the 4, and then Montrez. I never thought that was going to be the official starting lineup. I don't think Kawhi is going to play full-time 4 this year. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they go with that. But just from the little bit I was watching, I was like, man, I cannot wait to see Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the same floor together. It is really going to hit then. Because watching Kawhi get to his spots last night as he was the only superstar on the floor, and don't get me wrong, it was a spread floor, they were shooting everywhere, but still, being the only superstar focal point, I cannot wait to see him playing with Paul George, because at this point that we're at where Kawhi Leonard is a top 5 player in the league, we've never seen him play with another guy that's considered a star or superstar. When he was with the Spurs, he was not the same Kawhi he is right now. And then you're with the Raptors and you have Kyle Lowry, yeah, okay, yeah, star player, right? But PG, I'm talking about players that have like MVP campaigns, and PG had an MVP campaign last year before the injuries. So seeing two players, or seeing him on the floor with another player like that is going to draw that attention when we've already seen him get to his spots in much tougher situations. Oh, that's going to be a blessing. And that's without even going into the defensive end. The Clippers are going to be an absolute blessing to watch this year. I cannot wait. But for right now, there's not a whole lot to talk about with them because they are easing Kawhi Leonard in. They were playing against the Nuggets and Michael Porter Jr. played his second game. I didn't really catch most of that because I believe I turned to something else. Yeah, I was watching the Wolves and the Warriors after Kawhi went out. I forgot that Michael Porter was going to come in because in the Blazers game, they didn't play him till like the third quarter. I'm not sure when they put him in last night, but I went back and I watched what he was doing, and I am so happy, first of all, that he's actually playing because I'm pretty sure during the summer he sustained some type of injury and we didn't know if he was actually going to play. Now he's here on a Nuggets team that was one game away from the conference finals last year. That was the first seed last year, and we all forget that, what was it, a year ago? Before that injury, Porter was the first overall pick. He was the projected first overall pick. It was that injury that made him slide so far, so he's fell to a contending team, and so now a contending team adds what could be first overall pick talent, and it's coming off the bench. That's significant, I'll tell you why, because especially in this era of duos and in this Western Conference, you look at all these teams and then you see the Nuggets and you're like, yeah, Jokic is the lone star there. He's got good players around him, Gary Harris, but it's not like, you don't look at it as like a duo type thing. And so I'm hoping maybe down the line Porter Jr. will fill that role. He looks healthy so far. I believe he's only going to get better throughout the season. Jump shot is looking nice. He got to the rim a couple of times very easily in that Clippers game. And it's just all about development for him. I wonder if he's going to be as athletic and quick as agile as he was before the injuries, because that's what really stuck out. But if anything, he's still got great size and a great shot, so that's something to keep your eye on with the Nuggets this year. Man, look at all these teams with interesting things going on. I love this season so much because it just feels like there's so much going on. Like tonight is just preseason, but I'm looking at all the games and I go down the line and I see which ones I want to pay the most attention to. And I'm like, okay, Zion plays tonight, and then 30 minutes after that, you're going to have the Dallas Mavericks with Porzingis and Luka going against Giannis. And to know it's not all going to waste is so amazing. To know that We're not just going to get to the playoffs this year and one team is just going to steamroll everybody, or one team is just overwhelmingly expected to do this. I love it, man. There is so much to keep an eye on. This is easily going to be the greatest season I believe I've sat through. So yeah, since I spoke about the Dallas Mavericks, we can go ahead and go there. I did watch their game against the Pistons, or some of it anyways. I kind of switch back and forth. I don't try to watch two games at the same time, like on different screens. I don't do that. I hated that. Did that last season, wasn't a fan. Anyways, yes, Porzy, the unicorn. Kristaps Porzingis picking up right back where he left off in that Pistons game, shooting 4 threes, hitting it from the mid-range. He does not look like somebody who has ever torn his ACL. He looks exactly as you remember him. He hasn't really had that, those athletic flashes yet, but it's the preseason. It's one game. I'm just saying he didn't dunk on anybody. We know he can do that. But yes, him and Luka, that is going to be amazing. I saw in the Pistons game a couple of times where they did the pick and pop. Defenders paying hella attention to Luka Doncic. Porzingis spreading the floor damn near to the logo because he has that type of range, a 7-footer with that type of range. Watch out for the Mavericks this year. They could definitely be a playoff team. And that's just purely off the talent of those two. And they've got some good support pieces. You got Steph Curry. Tim Hardaway Jr. was going off in that game, but we'll see if that something like that sustains. They got Boban, which they do intend to use, as every team has. He shot a 3 the other night. Luka came in looking like he'd been working on floaters the entire summer. Yeah, the Mavericks, that is going to be so much fun. God, there's so many teams to watch this year. I was not excited to watch Mavericks games last year because once Luka Doncic went out, I didn't care. But now they're actually in the running for something. Oh man, there's just so much. Even D Rose was looking nice in that game. I believe he finished with like 18 points or something like that. Had a great fourth quarter. He's looking good and healthy. Still don't know about that Pistons championship he's talking about, but I'm glad to see him out there with his resurrected career. Let's talk about the Ben Simmons 3-pointer. Here we go again. Aw shit, here we go again. He hit that 3 and you have Bobby on Twitter talking about, oh, it wasn't against an NBA team. First of all, what does that even matter? NBA teams give him the same, if not more, space than this team gave him to shoot that 3. As a matter of fact, the dude saw Ben Simmons pulling up and he tried to contest it. I've seen NBA teams playing Ben Simmons in the paint before. So what? He hit a 3. Like, we know, we're not saying he's a sharpshooter right now, but to even come on that, you see what I'm talking about? To get on that highlight with the, oh, it wasn't an NBA team, what does that add? Like, just enjoy the fucking highlight. God, people can't enjoy anything. But yeah, he hit a 3. You saw on my Sixers team preview, that was a big thing that I was talking about because I know that he had been working on that this summer. And I was basically saying that I thought the playoff series against the Raptors was, or should have been, a wake-up call for him because with everything that happened last year with the Bucks waiting in the Eastern Conference Finals, who I think the Sixers could have beaten, not saying they just absolutely would have, but they definitely had a shot at that. And in looking at everything that happened to the Warriors, I truly believe that the Sixers could have a title right now if Ben Simmons had a jump shot. And that wasn't to blame Ben Simmons, I'm just saying, if you just add that dynamic onto the talent that they had, and think about how much more effective that could have made him and his teammates, I believe they could be sitting on a title right now in his second year. That would have been his sophomore year and he would have a title already, if he had a jump shot. So I think, you saw Joel Embiid walking off the court crying, and I'm sure that loss really hit them in the heart. And I think that was a wake-up call for him. So he's attempted a 3. He has attempted a 3, he made a 3, and who knows if it is going to become a staple, but this is what I also said in my preview, is it does not have to become a staple. Giannis and Ben Simmons, of course I'm going to get them mixed up talking about 3-point shots or lack thereof. Ben Simmons does not need to become a sniper. He doesn't need to be Curry, he doesn't need to be Steph or Seth, he doesn't need to be a marksman. He just needs to be, as a point guard, and as a very talented point guard, to open up more of his game and his team's game. Defenders just need to know that if they're giving him space, he gonna shoot that thing. That's all that he needs. You know how in the playoffs last year when the Celtics, they came in game 1 and they were kind of shutting Giannis down? And then throughout the series, he was hitting his 3-pointers at a decent rate for him, so that it just gave you a little bit of fear, like maybe we shouldn't totally rely on him not hitting these because he was knocking them down. That's all that needs to happen, is that a defender might feel like Ben Simmons can hit a 3-pointer so that they move up, and bam, so many different avenues open up just from that small tiny threat, that thought. And so that's the magic of him shooting 3s this year, if he's going to take it into the season, which I assume he will, because you got to come back and get better. You can't just come season to season and not even be attempting 3-pointers. So I'm glad to see that for his sake and for the Sixers' sake, he's adding that to his game. He's at that point where he needs it. He's not a rookie anymore. He's not a sophomore. He's not just figuring out the league anymore. He's on what we believe might be the second or first best team in the Eastern Conference. They have contending aspirations. So yes, in that situation, he needs that in his bag. And the three was looking clean. The form was good. It snapped the net. I'm looking for Ben Simmons 3-pointers this year because that's the next step for the Sixers. They lost Jimmy Butler. They lost Redick. Especially playing with Joel Embiid, who's going to need space down low. You cannot just keep coming back the same Ben Simmons every year. And that goes back to the Zion conversation we were having earlier. So this is Zion's first year. He's going to be figuring things out. I don't think he's going to be that great of a shooter this year, but as he goes on and the stakes get higher, his bag has got to get bigger, just like Ben Simmons appears to be. Speaking of the Eastern Conference, the Celtics have only played one game, but by the time this pod releases, they will have played two. They're playing the Magic tonight. And I'm looking, I'm a Celtics fan. I'm a Zion stan, but I'm a Celtics fan. And Carson Edwards, I am also a stan. The energy he brought off the bench in that first game, the shooting that he brought, I am so excited to see what he does as a sixth man. I had heard about him, I had heard people telling me how excited I should be for him, and then I watched that first game and he's one of those players, he sticks out. The energy just sticks out. You know those players that get on the floor like that, like Matthew Dellavedova in the finals and TJ McConnell, those players that you could just tell they are playing hard. That's what I feel like I got out of Carson Edwards in that game against the Hornets. He came out, he was hounding the ball handler, he was looking for his shot. He looked ultra confident for a player in his first ever NBA game. It did not look like his first time there. I am very excited for that. Of course, we got a peek at Taco Fall. And who doesn't love Taco? We all want to see him in the NBA. I would be honored to have him on the Celtics. He actually played down here he played at UCF. So me going to college here in Central Florida, I knew people who knew him. I had always heard about him. I had heard about him way back when he was just like this really tall kid and you didn't know if he was going to actually be good at basketball. So I've been keeping up with Taco for a while. It would be an honor to have him on the Celtics. I don't know if he's going to make that last roster spot though, because if you weren't aware, he is in a fight for that, I believe. There's another player fighting for that spot too. It is Green, Javonte Green. If I had to be honest here, I know a lot of you maybe didn't watch the Celtics game, but hopefully you saw the highlights of this dude just dunking the ball every time he was around the rim. I really like that. I love that effort because you could tell he's really trying to make this team. He was doing 360s. He was getting up as high as he could. And he brought a lot of energy, the type of energy we could use off the bench. I am a Javonte. I'm a fan, bro. I'm a fan of Green. Now, if the roster spot comes, because I don't think there's a way to keep both of them, to keep Green and Fall. I don't think so. If it comes down to Green or Taco, I love Taco, man. I love Taco, but I might pick Green. Now, that's just at this point. Of course, I need to see more basketball from them both. Who knows? Maybe the second game will change everything. But I'm looking at Taco, and I just feel like it's going to be kind of hard to use him effectively in today's NBA. So sure, we have Boban, but Boban is also, I don't know, there's just something about him, right? First of all, he takes shots from the perimeter. Not a knockdown shooter, not a sniper or anything, but he will shoot it from out there. That's something that Taco does not have yet. Also, he's a little bit more filled out too. He's filled. Taco is a lot lankier, so it seems like guys with size down there might be able to fight with him a little bit more. And the things that you're giving up on defense with him as well, because you're obviously giving up quickness. That being said, it was significantly harder for the Hornets to score when he got on the floor. He got a couple of blocks just like that. People trying him, people testing him at the rim. I don't know though. I guess what I'm trying to say is Taco seems like he's going to be more of a gimmick than anything. I'm not sure how many effective minutes we're actually going to get out of him if we're looking at the comparison between do we keep him or Javonte Green. If it was just Taco, oh, I would love to have him. We'll figure it out. We can always find a use for like a 7'6" guy in the NBA, right? We can use something from him. But if it's this comparison, I think the drawbacks of having somebody that size kind of tip the scale when I'm looking at having the energy and athleticism that Javonte Green will bring to a wing spot. So we will see what's going to happen there. I really pray there's a way for us to keep them both. If that happens, then I'm a happy Celtics fan this year. And yeah, we might end up being the third best team in the East. It's possible. We have no clue what's going to happen, but again, the East is so shallow that that's just not a high bar. Saying the third best team in the East this year, it's not a high bar at all, okay? The Nets are missing Kevin Durant, and we don't know how great that's of a team that's going to be this year. You have the Heat with Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, which I'll talk about in a minute, but if you look at the Celtics, they have the remnants of what was supposed to be a great team, and they've tweaked some things. So Kyrie already admitted to his failures as a leader on that team, and we know the problems that was causing. Jason Tatum hopefully has come to his senses and is not going to be taking a ton of bad shots this year, a ton of bad mid-range off the dribble pull-ups. Gordon Hayward looked very confident in his first game back, and again, that's just what I'm looking at. I'm not judging him off of a preseason game and saying he's going to be back to his start level, but Like his confidence on a basketball court after having snapped your leg in half. That is big. That is something that you can judge in any type of basketball game. And he was driving to the rim. He was making those aggressive moves that he used to make in Utah. So I'm looking for him to build on that this year. We've put Kemba in, who, I don't know if you guys saw that article, but you couldn't really find anybody saying anything negative about Kemba. So as a leader, that just might be what this team needed. Even if he's not as good as Kyrie, he's definitely not the same player as Kyrie. But as we saw last year, all the talent in the world doesn't always equate to success. So having a very good player in Kemba, who is maybe not going to disrupt so much with Jaylen Brown and Tatum, and Hayward gets a good platform to get back on his feet, I think the third spot in the East is very doable. So I am looking forward to this year. I joked on Twitter about how, like, man, I miss, you know, the 2010 days when we had Shaq and KG, and now I'm just praying that we can pull out like 40 something wins to be third seed. Hey, but I'm still excited because I've been a Celtics fan now since 2008, so I've gone through some dark times. I went through that era where we had like Jeff Green and like nobody else. That time we traded Rondo and the players that we got back from the Nets deal, Chris Humphries, and you were just like, what are we doing this year? What is Celtics basketball this year? I'm glad there's still a product on the floor worth watching. But hey, as far as I'm actually concerned, after 1 and 2 in the Eastern Conference, it's kind of up for grabs to an extent, right? I don't see the Orlando Magic sliding into the 3 spot. I don't think the Hornets are going to be the third best team. I'm talking about when you get to that like Pacers and Nets and Heat type thing with the Celtics. Yeah, the third is open to a lot of teams is what I'm trying to say. So like with the Heat, you've got Jimmy Butler, you got a good culture down there, and then Tyler Hero. He came and showed out in his first game. That kid has a smooth jump shot. He has a very nice stop and go game. What if Heat has a really good rookie year next to Jimmy Butler? All of a sudden, you're looking at maybe the Heat in the third seed. That's just how open it is. Don't know much about Hero yet. Again, it's only been 2 games. His first game was a lot better than his second. He is a rookie, so let's just see how it goes. But I did like what I saw. The little bit I saw from his game, I really liked. But just from a talent aspect and how X's and O's work, I still don't think that it gets much better than the Bucks and the Sixers. If it goes really bad for the Sixers this year and the Celtics sneak up there, I wouldn't be mad. Because I think the Celtics have the talent to have a good season. They have the talent and they have the mix and they have the pieces in the right places to have a good season this year. I don't think because they lost Kyrie and Horford that they are just done for. Hell, for all we know, losing Kyrie and Horford has completely opened up the game for Hayward to get back and for Tatum and Brown to shine. But yes, losing Horford was definitely a negative. I'm already sick of Cancer's pick and roll defense. Oh god, it's tragic. I really miss Horford's active hands and his defensive interest, but yeah, we'll just see how everything goes there. And yeah, that's kind of it for the NBA, man. Let's just have a good season. I'm so excited. I'm actually doing like on-camera appearances now on my channel. I never use face cam or anything, but I think I'm gonna build this empty room out of my apartment for like an actual filming area, I guess. There's a lot of fun to be had with this season, and I think that will be good for the NBA portion of the podcast. I'm pretty sure I hit every detail that I wanted to mention. Let's talk about games now. Let's talk about games because the PlayStation 5 was announced. And wow, that just blindsided me. I woke up in the morning and I saw an official tweet from the PlayStation account, the official PlayStation account, saying the PS5 was announced, and wait for it, the shocker. It's called PlayStation 5. That was the big announcement. I don't know, I guess people thought they were going to call it something different. I'm glad they didn't. I don't want PlayStation to ever be called anything different. And I already made a video on my second channel on what I think this could mean for 2K going forward. So I'll start from the top here. I already talked about how the PS5 was supposed to have the biggest computing jump in console history. That's something that they've been selling. So we got that. We now know that it is going to have ray tracing at the hardware level and not the software level. That was a big distinction people wanted to make. I'm still waiting to see how, well, obviously I'm waiting. I'll be wanting to see how game developers take advantage of that, because I always wondered how ray tracing was like this big thing we heard with the PCs, and now it's supposed to be in an affordable console. I don't know, we'll see. And then we got the detail, oh, it is going to have a disc tray. So we were just talking about games going digital, and I told you somebody had asked me that question, and I said not quite yet. Yes, it is going to have a disc tray. Pretty sure the Xbox Scarlett will as well. The big thing that they talked about in the article though was haptic feedback, this new controller. That was the big selling point of this article. It's probably not it is not the only selling point of the console. I'll be mad as hell if they sell me a new console and the biggest change is the control, but that's just what they wanted to tell us right now. I guess that's what they were most prepared to talk about. And they were talking about haptic feedback as opposed to the rumble that we now have. So we are all familiar with rumble if you play PlayStation. Controller vibrates a bit amongst impact. You crash into a wall, controller vibrates, punch somebody, controller vibrates, and it just kind of all feels the same. Well, they're saying with haptic feedback that you're actually going to be able to feel differences in what you're doing on screen. So for instance, if you're walking through mud or snow, you'll be able to feel that difference with haptic feedback. I can't even imagine in my head how that really works yet, because there's only so many ways you can feel vibration, right? So I guess they're going to be really innovative with this, since it's something they've talked about so much. Talking about how developers are going to be able to program the triggers to be sensitive with this haptic feedback. So something like if you're pulling a bow and arrow back, you're just not going to feel a rumble once the arrow flies. I guess some way with the haptic feedback, as you're pulling on the trigger, you'll actually be able to feel that pullback. And yeah, that was most of the official news that we got. So then I went ahead and made that 2K video, because I'm just so happy that 2K is over on this console generation. And it is, as I was telling y'all on the podcast back in August. When 2K released and I saw they had the same menu set up, that Play Now Online was literally a copy and paste with no new added features, that the park hadn't been worked on. When I saw all those things, I told y'all an alarm went off in my mind that, okay, this has to mean PS5 is next year. Because there were some people that thought, oh nah, 2021, I'm not ready for a new console yet. But 2K20's release to me was a clear indication that so much of that team is probably already and has already been working on 2K21. And they did a worse job hiding it this time, you know, because I'm thinking back to when I was a kid and when I got NBA 2K13. And 2K13 was a nice sizable jump from 2K12 in terms of differences, right? If you actually go back and rank the gameplay and things, 2K12 was actually a bit better for its time. But the game looked different, it felt different, there were different things with the controls, menus were totally different. It felt like its own separate game, whereas 2K20 really felt like, okay, they just went all in on the gameplay, but they left a lot of the user interface and a lot of game modes exactly the same. So especially with the neighborhood, I saw that and I was like, yep, 2K21 is on its way for the PS5, and I'm so glad I was right, because I'm just sick. I'm sick of 2K on this generation, I really am. It just doesn't feel the same as it used to. So this is the part, if you watched my PS5 video on my second channel, I told you I was going to take a different angle on the podcast. Yeah, what I didn't want to bog down that video getting into with is NBA 2K on this generation just does not feel the same as it felt in terms of jumps on the PlayStation 3. So every year that I got a 2K on the PlayStation 3, it always felt like I really was getting a new game and a new experience. So when I went from 2K10 to 2K11, there was a giant jump with all the teams, and the game looked totally different and it played totally different. Then 2K12 comes out and you have even more legends and you have the legend modes. But okay, you can't keep adding legends every single year, right? Eventually you get where we are now and you have most of the legends in the game. But every 2K, go back and look at them on PlayStation 3. All the 2Ks on PlayStation 3 look so distinctly different that I can always look at them and tell you which one it is. If you show me a picture of 2K10 and 11 side by side, I will be able to tell you without hesitation, just I know the look of them. The game always felt different, the user interfaces were always totally different, the black top changed from time to time. There was just so many things, right? And with 2K on the PlayStation 4 with a more powerful console, I felt like we lost that. Once we got to 2K17 on the PlayStation 4, black top stopped changing. We got Play Now Online, which received very small updates every year, but it's had the same problems, and then 19 and 20 were exactly the same. Then you even look at things like the park. In 16, right? In 2K16, the parks, for 2K17, they just made them dark, they made them nighttime, that's it. For 2K20, they've just done a minor version of that. All they did this year is now in the park, there's changing seasons and it goes from daytime to nighttime. That's basically what they did. So I feel like these little incremental changes and the lack thereof, I just felt like that's been so prominent this console generation, and every 2K has not felt like a wildly different experience like it always did on the PlayStation 3. So, and that's also how I feel with the graphics. I think that is very true with the graphics, because look, on the PlayStation 3, the graphics, the whole look of the game, you know how on PS4 we say the look of 2K14, every game after it looks worse, even if you zoom in and you see that the players are better and all that. But the lighting of that game, when you just look at the presentation and broadcast mode, is still a very pretty game, and it still contends with all these other ones, and it contends with 2K20 6 years later. Well, yes, NBA 2K11 was probably the best looking PS3 NBA 2K. By the time you got to NBA 2K13, I think if you look at those side by side, 11 probably looked better, but every game looked vastly different as well. And I think on this console generation, that's what has made it go stale a little bit, is that the games rarely look that much different. To me, 14 is the only one that's like extremely distinct. And then there's NBA 2K15. If you look at the rim looks really stupid. So you can always tell because of the way the rim looks what game is NBA 2K15. And then 16 is probably the best looking one aside from 14. And then after that, it's just kind of like, yeah, the changes are very incremental. You really have to look at the players. And so most people say, well, that's because of the consoles that we're on, you know? They've went basically as far as they can. Like, how much better can Anthony Davis actually look? How much more like himself can he actually look? And that was a big thing. On the PlayStation 3, there was always room for improvement, right? Because if you look at Kevin Durant in NBA 2K13, he actually doesn't look like himself. LeBron doesn't really look like himself. They look like representations, but it's not like today where it's damn near photorealistic. So with that addition, with the technology they use now for face scans, yeah, it's kind of hard because the players themselves can't really look that much different. And then that's on top of the game not looking that much different. So yeah, long story short, I'm sick of 2K on this generation. I'm ready for it to look and feel different. And I'm encouraged by the console and the new features that it brings. The ray tracing, if 2K is able to take advantage of that, because they were masters of lighting in NBA 2K14. And lighting is so important in a game that takes place in an arena that I would assume they're going to do everything they can to maximize that. Of course, that is their staple too. 2K is known for when a new console drops, they drop that epic commercial, that epic trailer, and it's like, look what we did. Look what God did. They bring out this amazing new thing, and they pride themselves in being like the best looking game on this next gen console when it first releases. That's what NBA 2K14 was. I'll never forget playing NBA 2K14 2 weeks after it came out. I got it on opening night, but 2 weeks later I was in my room playing it and my brother was in there, and I just told him, I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna get over how good this looks. And I was right. This many years later, what, 6 years later, I haven't gotten over it. 2K14 is still a very pretty game. So with things like ray tracing, the computing power of this next gen console, it really seems like everything that is needed to be there to improve a sports game is going to be there, as it always is, and I can't wait. If you have not been through a console generation or a console transition, with 2K, this is how it's going to work. They're going to release NBA 2K21 for the PlayStation 4, and they're going to release it probably around the same time they always do, September, October. It's looking like the next gen consoles, they say it's going to be ready for holiday season, so to me that means they're going to release it around November like they always, or like they normally do. So 2K21 will have released before that on the PlayStation 4, and then you're gonna get another version in November, and that's gonna be the PlayStation 5 version. Fair warning, NBA 2K21 on the PlayStation 4, I'm telling you right now, it's literally going to be NBA 2K20 with some gameplay changes. That is it. Look at what history says. History repeats itself. Now, I give them credit, right? NBA 2K14 had some new modes and stuff. They had that LeBron Path to Greatness mode. That was a pretty cool thing to add to a version of a game that they knew wasn't going to be the main version, but they did it. But if you go look at 2K14 on the PS3, it looks exactly like 2K13. And I went and bought it. I remember I went and bought it. I didn't know how long it was going to be until I got the PS4 back then. I wasn't buying it myself. So I get the PS3 version, and I remember taking it home that night, and I was like, it's literally the same graphics. Almost like, do you remember playing the 2K20 demo just a couple of months ago and how the tutorial page, it looked exactly like NBA 2K19. The gameplay looked pretty much identical, or the game itself looked pretty much identical. Yeah, that was, so it's already happened kind of early here, but that's what 2K14 was. Same assets, same basketball, same goal. Players gonna look the same. They might add some new modes. They're gonna change some things just so they can justify selling it. But other than that, it is literally going to be roster updates from here on out. 2K21 on the PlayStation 4, we're probably gonna go up to like what, 2K25, I would say. That seems pretty standard because I believe the last PS2 2K was around like 2K12, and the last PS3 2K was, wow, I can't even remember. Let me see. No, it's 2K17. That's right. I don't believe 18 released for the PlayStation 3. So yeah, it looks like we'll probably go to around like 25, 26 or something like that on the PS4. Then they'll stop releasing it. But long before then, they'll just be jokes, right? They will just be jokes on YouTube. We'll go and see like how the game never changed. All their effort is going to be going into 2K21. I'm pretty sure all their effort is already going into it. That's why something as simple as Play Now Online not working on the PS4, yet it works on the Xbox One, has happened. I truly believe that. I truly believe that some of these teams are not paying any attention to 2K20 anymore. Some of them are. Mike Wang is still making a lot of tweaks to the game. He's a real good dude. He puts in a lot of work, but I think as far as like divvying up the team, yeah, they're looking at this PS5. So yeah, man, my hype level cannot be contained. Can't you tell? I'm so ready to dive into this next generation of consoles and all the games that it's going to have to offer. This officially means that Grand Theft Auto 6 is probably going to be an exclusive PS5 and, I mean, next gen game. It's gonna come out on Xbox as well. They're not gonna do y'all dirty like that. But I know we were wondering, GTA 5 came out at the end of the PlayStation 3 life cycle, so we were saying, man, they haven't announced it yet. Are they gonna do the same thing? Is it gonna be like The Last of Us where it comes out right at the end and then they remaster it for the next gen? Well, by my calculations, see, Grand Theft Auto 5 was announced in November of 2011 and did not release until almost 2 years later. So that's the only calendar we have to go by. And that's when the trailer dropped. I'm sorry, I don't know if they even announced it earlier before that. But if we're going by a scale similar to that, they have not even announced it yet. We're going to assume that when they do announce GTA 6, it's gonna be a good year and a half, if not an almost full 2 years before the game comes out. It doesn't look like we're getting an announcement anytime soon, so let's say the announcement comes some way through 2020, we're probably not gonna get it until the end of 2021 or around 2022. By that point, we will already be some way into these next gen consoles, which to me means they are probably not going to be developing a version of that type of game for the PlayStation 4. I really don't think so. See, it's not like 2K where they have this thing and they're going to have this yearly release and it's going to keep coming out for both consoles, and the one for the PlayStation 4 is just basically going to be the same game it always was. They're a totally different game. This is a gigantic AAA title. It's hard to imagine them developing a version that's going to go out on the PS4 when the PS4 will be so old by the time it comes out. So somebody had mentioned like, oh, don't put it past them. They released GTA V right before the PlayStation 4 came out, but again, they had announced it a whole 2 years ahead of time. We don't have any kind of real news yet. All we have is rumors. So yeah, to me that means GTA 6 is going to be a straight up PS5 game. Knowing what we know about these consoles and how big the games got on this generation, I think that's going to be awesome. I cannot wait. I can't wait because I know that Rockstar, they're just they're famous for this. They are famous for pushing consoles like in Red Dead, pushing consoles as far as they can go, developing gigantic beautiful worlds with tons of stuff to do. GTA 6 is going to be a blessing. I just hope that I'm here for it. Speaking of that, I want to take a little bit of a detour because something I mentioned in the last podcast when we were talking about video game sizes and whether we were going to go digital. One of the things I was talking about were games getting bigger, and I guess they're still going to get bigger, but the article I was reading was talking about how they could get smaller because of the PlayStation 5 using an SSD instead of a hard drive. So it's going to be using a solid state drive. Now that is something that I should have mentioned way ahead of time when I was talking about the haptic feedback. I forgot that was one of the big changes too. And that's a big announcement because the way it works is hard drives, data has to be fetched off of them with a needle. So you know, it spins and then the needle goes and reads it. And so I read that because of the way that works, because of the way that system works, games have gotten really big on this console generation based off of the fact that developers will duplicate a lot of files on a video game so that that data can be read faster. So that needle that's searching for the data, instead of having to search for a specific point, if they duplicate these files, it's able to find those files faster and then the game is able to load faster. And so you're not stuck at loading screens, you're not seeing a ton of pop-ins and things like that. So a solid state drive works differently. It doesn't have moving parts. That means that devs are not going to have to duplicate a ton of files to get that same effect so that a game can load faster. Solid state means it's going to load faster off the bat. That's one of the things they already demonstrated when you saw how Spider-Man 5 loads way faster on the PS5 than the PS4. They showed some tech demo with that. And so games could get smaller because of the lack of duplicated files, but I also think, okay, doesn't that mean they are going to probably use that extra space that would originally have been for the duplicated files for more content in the game? Is that possible? To me, that sounds like there's more possibility. So we get into this next console generation, and haven't we always been wondering about like interiors of buildings and stuff, and why are so few interiors in games? Are these consoles going to be able to handle something like that, where more and more things on the map become accessible, where they can just simply be more? That's pretty much every console generation, right? There can always be more, but especially with this change, that's pretty interesting. So I thought for 2K, like with those capabilities, I see them probably using that to expand their most popular mode, which is the park. We already know that My Career is the most popular game mode in 2K, so the neighborhood is an extension of that. So I think all the extra space and power that they have, a lot of it's going to be going to that and building out the things that you can do with your player, and because that's never going away. First of all, that's a cash cow, and it's just way too popular. That's what keeps most people playing throughout the year. So gonna be very interesting to see what they do with that. And yeah, with this new console generation, I want to make up for lost time. College robbed me of the PlayStation 4 experience. It really did. I will never stop telling y'all how in college I only had time for 2K and then maybe one other game from time to time. I'd get online on Battlefield sometimes, I'd dabble in the new Call of Duty, but I never had time to get invested in stories. Or during the summer I played Uncharted 4 because you weren't going to stop me from playing Uncharted 4. But for the most part, yeah, for these like 5 years I was in college, I missed a lot of gaming. So for the PlayStation 5, I want to own every PlayStation 5 game that comes out, all of it. Talking about those stupid truck simulators, talking about like, you know, the pony games. That's Nintendo Switch. Go look that up. There's a terrible horse game on the Switch. I wonder who made it and why. Now for the PS5, that's a goal of mine, another bucket list item. Watch Dragon Ball all the way through and own every next gen console game. I want them all. Because once I played Red Dead and I've gotten back into story modes just recently, and I've been, you know, I played Zelda, Link's Awakening and all that, I'm just trying to get back into gaming the way that I was, and it's not really something I have to try to do. It's happened quite easily. But I figured, like, I enjoyed the PlayStation 3 so much, and then the games got bigger, and I just wasn't really there to experience most of them. So in this last year, I'm trying to play as many games as I can. Right now, I'm working on Batman Arkham Knight. I played Arkham City. That's the one. It wasn't Asylum. I played Arkham City when I was back on the Xbox back around like 2011, 2012. Loved that game. Playing Arkham Knight right now. I know that's the one that doesn't really get rave reviews. People hate the Batmobile. I don't like the Batmobile that much either. I don't like the controls in this game that much, but nevertheless, it's still an Arkham game and I'm having fun with it. I beat Link's Awakening too. I finally beat that game, and let's have a conversation about Link's Awakening, right? Where are all my Zelda fans? All of you played Zelda games. I know a lot of you have, because I said I never played one on Twitter and I got mobbed. Look, if you, it's simple, right? You've already heard this if you follow me on Twitter. If you played Link's Awakening in the 90s and you beat that game, you should have, that right there should have been your admission into Harvard. That game is hard as fuck. And not from the gameplay mechanics, but the things that you have to figure out. And it's frustrating because every time you enter a dungeon, every time you exit one and you have to find out where you have to go, you always have to figure some shit out. Always. And you can get to these points where you feel like you've tried everything, and then it'll be something as simple as a crack in the wall and a dark spot that you didn't see and you were supposed to put a bomb there. Bro, how did y'all beat this game? Because the game is exactly the same too. That's something I didn't know. I was wondering because the game looks so nice. I was like, this is nearly a 30-year-old game, so what was that like and how much did they change? And people were saying, oh, well, it's basically identical. You have the same items in the same places, and I went and looked for myself and I was like, yeah, it pretty much is. And wow, they did a hell of a job bringing this game to life. But that means there were the same things to figure out, and you didn't have internet back then. What did y'all do when y'all exited a dungeon and it really wasn't clear what you had to do, or with the trading system? What did y'all do when you didn't realize, like, oops, I hadn't been keeping up with the trading system? Was that in the old game? I have no clue how you would have beaten that game. And yeah, I think games like Red Dead made me soft. Red Dead, Rockstar games in general, GTA, they literally tell you everything, and it's kind of annoying. Every time you take a step, they tell you where to go, what direction to go, who to talk to. It's kind of like you're playing through a movie. So Zelda doesn't hold your hand at all. Like, they give you a hint, they give you a hint. They have those little call centers and you go talk to the guy and he tells you a hint of, sometimes they're very vague, and then you got to figure it out from there. But I was opening Google every 30 minutes. By the end of that game, I was like, man, I just want to play Breath of the Wild. This is an enjoyable game. It was fun. Don't get me wrong. Link's Awakening was fun. I finished it, so it was fun, because I would not hesitate to put a game down and never touch it again. I have a history of that. So I had fun, but oh man, I just started picking up Google because sometimes it just was not apparent. Like, after I got to the end with the egg and I realized that I hadn't been, like halfway through the trading system, I guess I stopped. I was like, man, what if this was the 90s and I couldn't Google where I was in the trading system and where I was supposed to go? What would I have done? I guess I've forgotten my childhood and getting stuck on games for like months at a time. I guess that probably happened. I remember beating Boo's Fury. That took a while. Those were just different times. Anyways, I did beat the game. I got through Link's Awakening. I'm going to start Breath of the Wild now. Switch games I can always play simultaneously with console games, because again, Switch games I could just lay on the couch and play, don't have to be that invested. And yeah, I'm just trying to get through as many games as I can before the end of this console generation, because one thing I'm really not going to do as much of is go back and play retro games. I have love for my retro games, but there's so much new stuff that I didn't get to experience and that I want to experience. I'm not going back every year to play the same exact games. So in this last year, I'll be playing the Assassin's Creed game. Of course, Last of Us is coming. I want to play The Witcher because I heard that's a journey. That's something that people were recommending. And yeah, we'll see what I can do. My time is basically filled up until next November when the PlayStation 5 comes out. So yeah, I think that's good for this podcast. I am tired of talking. It's hard to do these for a long time by yourself, which brings me to the point. I think my co-host will be back next week. The NBA season is upon us. I think I'm going to, if we can get our schedules right, bring them back. One is in grad school, the other is he has 2 jobs, so it can be kind of difficult, but things can work better now. I can get it worked out to where the mics won't sound like we're all talking through garbage cans, because we didn't really take the time to figure that out. We were so anxious just to get our chemistry right and just get talking basketball, really, that we just kind of hopped on and started recording. And none of them, if you go back and listen to those old podcasts, none of them sound good. I won't even go back and listen to them myself, because it's like chalk. It's like a chalkboard, right? The voices echoing off each other and the channels, so I will have all that figured out if they do come back. At very least, Eric will probably be on. Raw's schedule might make it a little bit difficult, we will see, but yeah, either one or both of them will come back on and we'll start discussing the season. As far as like the game section of the podcast and things like that, I'll probably hop on at the end and do it myself, because none of them really play video games. They don't really have time. So if there's something to talk about in gaming news or something I want to talk about with that in anime, oh, whoops, I am wrapping up this podcast. Hopefully you guys seen on the time marker that there was more to go. The Joker movie. I knew there was something I was missing. My mind works so funny. I always know there's something missing. Like I can feel it, but I don't know what it is. And then I always end up being right. It's like when I leave home and I know I forgot something and I just don't know until I need it. Yes, the Joker movie. God bless Joker. That seriously might be the best movie I've seen this year. I think really quickly, I'm just going to improvise. I'm going to do a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section, so I can talk about it a little bit on the surface, and there's going to be specific things I want to mention, so I will literally tell you and give you a very good warning before I'm about to go into spoilers. Okay, non-spoilers. That movie is fucking amazing. Just so you know, I really know nothing about DC. I knew absolutely nothing about the Joker, so when I saw the commercials for the Joker movie and I saw everyone going crazy in the comments, I was like, well, the only way I know Batman is Joker. Sorry, the only way I know Joker is Batman. And they were not advertising this as a duet between them, so I was wondering, well, how is this going to be interesting? And it is so interesting from a storytelling perspective. From an acting perspective, Joaquin Phoenix just sold this role so goddamn good. It got you invested. It really got you invested. It was believable. It didn't seem like somebody who just practiced being crazy. It looked crazy. It was shocking. There was times I was sitting in there, my eyes got wide. I was like, oh shit, like this what we doing? Oh man. And I actually got chills watching the movie. By the end, I actually had chills, and that's crazy because it wasn't like there was anything really, there wasn't crazy explosions. There's not all this crazy stuff happening. It's not super action-packed like a Marvel movie, and it has no history behind it. It's not like a DCU movie. It doesn't have a universe built up and all that. So I was wondering like, man, why is this movie giving me chills? But it's just because his selling of the role, that shit was epic. And I had no clue I had any interest in a movie like this. It was so good that I want to see it twice, but I'm gonna go see Gemini Man today. Nobody in my circle is available, so I'm not gonna go watch Joker twice by myself. I'd rather watch it with somebody who hadn't really seen it before. Otherwise, I want to see Gemini Man, and then I'm gonna see the Joker again a second time because it is worth that. I was watching, and I tell you how non-interested I was in this movie before I went to see it, right? I watched some reviews, and I didn't care if they were spoiler reviews or not. And one of the reviews, the dude was saying it doesn't do anything new. It's kind of like a typical story, and he didn't dislike the movie. He was just saying in terms of how the guy becomes Joker, and this isn't really a spoiler here. It's something, you know, it's just talking about some surface stuff. It just doesn't do anything new. The guy is treated poorly by society. Multiple examples of that happen, and then boom. But that wasn't really a criticism I had of the movie because I wasn't really sure what else did you really want there? What else did you really want them to do? I was really paying attention to more of what the movie did in terms of being a Joker movie, but also being able to talk about mental health, because there's one thing that was, I think it was such a powerful line, is in his notebook, you see it written down, and it said the worst thing about having a mental health problem is that society expects you to act as if you don't. And I just thought that was so powerful because I just thought about it and I was like, damn, that is actually true. If you look at how society treats mental health and people with those problems and maybe kind of shuns them sometimes, it was a really good commentary on mental health as well as being a Joker movie. Alright, I think I'm going to talk spoilers now, so at this specific point, if you don't want to hear spoilers about the Joker, click off now. I'm going to say it again so you have no excuses. If you don't want Joker spoilers, click off now. You've been warned. Alright, this is my crew that's seen the movie. Excellent job with the storytelling. Excellent job keeping your interest in a movie that is not, you know, severely action-packed like everything we're used to, because especially with a comic book movie. And so one of the things that was interesting with the Joker's quote-unquote girlfriend, I didn't realize until I got out of the theater that none of that was really happening. And I thought it was weird. There were cues that it wasn't real, but it also seemed so real. And then you realize it's just his hallucinations, or it's just his perception of reality. Because when he busts in the door after, I can't remember at what scene he did it after, but he busts in the door and he just kisses the girl. I was like, well, damn, first of all, they hadn't really even built up any kind of rapport for that. And then he was acting kind of crazy and saying crazy shit around her. And I was like, wait, this is kind of weird, right? This girl is just into psychos? Because there was just so much stuff that he had said and did. I was like, so she's just into this, right? For a second, I was thinking, I was like, whoa, did they make Harley Quinn black? Is that the direction they were going here? Because again, I don't know shit about it. So then that scene where he's sitting on her couch and she walks in and she's scared. I thought she was scared because it was dark and he was sitting with his back turned, so she couldn't tell who he was. And then she was like, you're Arthur from down the hall, right? And so that's your cue that she'd never actually been with him. But I didn't take that cue. I was like, oh, it's just dark. And I couldn't really figure it out. It was confusing to me. So then they left it very ambiguous as to if he actually killed her or not, because he did that thing where he put the gun sign to his head like she had done earlier in the elevator. I don't know if he killed her. There's no really they leave that part up for interpretation. But yeah, his transformation into like this guy who was just trying to find his way with a mental health issue, that thing that makes him laugh all the time, his transformation from that to Joker, which is more of kind of like a confident crazy character, that shit was badass, bro. And it was like a definite moment you could tell from where he just went from what he was trying to do, being a comedian and kind of failing at it and feeling like society couldn't see him, to feeling like he'd inspired a movement. That shit was boss as fuck. And it was completely refreshing. It was refreshing to see a movie that, because don't get me wrong, I love my Marvel movies. I don't care. A movie like this comes out and people feel the need to slander every other genre. Oh yeah, Marvel needs a CGI and all this. Bro, Marvel's cool, alright? I love Marvel too. I spent the last 10 years of my life watching Marvel movies and connecting this universe up to Endgame. I'm not about to shit on Marvel. That's all, they have their thing, right? But they're different type of movies. And it was cool to see that I could get interested in a movie that did not have all this CGI and explosions and interconnected things from other movies, and it was just a simple origin story, just a very simple origin story. They did a good job of tying Batman into it and having the famous scene where his parents get killed. They just did a very good job without doing a lot. And that, I think that's probably the best part about the movie. I didn't know what to expect. Again, I heard people talk about it and I knew Joker was out and I needed something to do that day. So I was like, I'm gonna go see Joker. And yeah, that's like the best $16 I ever spent. And so what's funny, my natural reaction after the movie ended, first thing I do is hop on Google, is Joker going to have a sequel? And I saw that the director said that he does not plan to have a sequel, that this is not a part of the DCEU or DCU, I'm not sure the difference between those, saying that it's not anything like that. It is just a simple origin story for a very popular and well-known character. And hey, I appreciated that. I was kind of disappointed because I was like, man, I want to see this keep going. I want to see more Joker. I want to see Joaquin Phoenix do this again. But hey, maybe that will be the beauty of this movie. It is just a very brilliant origin story and it stands on its own. And it doesn't get ruined by having a sequel that doesn't live up. But yeah, if you're here and still here for some reason and you hadn't seen it, go see it. Go see that movie. It is totally worth your time, even though if you don't care about DC or anything, I'm telling you it's worth your time because I knew zip, nada, nothing about Batman or Joker, and it was awesome. Alright, so back to where, oh man, I'm glad I didn't forget that because it wouldn't have made sense to do this next week. Yeah, back to what I was saying. In the event that I do bring my co-host back, the other sections of the show are not going to disappear. If I come back with something to say, like a life section or a gaming section, if I have something to say, I will record that part solo. Maybe I'll bring them in on some of the conversations, but there's certain things like games. I know they don't play games. They don't play a lot of games anyways, so it won't really make sense to have like an in-depth conversation about it with them. So if there's something that needs to be said, I'll come back after that. But hey, the NBA season is starting and there's gonna be so much to discuss that hey, sometimes maybe there really won't be a section like that. We can easily, during a season and after a full week, we'll easily be able to run up probably like an hour and a half of just straight basketball talk, because there'll be a lot to dissect. So yeah, one or both of them are most likely coming back next Friday. If your problem with having co-hosts was that it sounded like trash, the mics are not going to be trash. I'm going to make sure of that, or we won't, do it together next week, because I'm going to make sure that problem is fixed. I will not record a podcast where it sounds like we're recording on our phones. So yeah, that is it for this week's podcast. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button, comment, and sub to the channel. If it is easier for you to digest this podcast through Spotify, through iTunes, the link is in the comment section and the description. And hit the bell next to the channel name if you want notifications when this drops every single Saturday morning. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.